Hello everyone, Storm 101 here. Today we'll be talking about an Alberta Clipper system that'll be moving from parts of the northern plains, upper Midwest, and they'll actually move through parts of the Midwest and eventually getting down to parts of the Ohio Valley, maybe as far as the Tennessee Valley, and make it a little bit interesting as you get down to parts of the Mid-Atlantic and the Carolinas as well. We're also going to be having a look into the upcoming pattern here in the long range. It's certainly looking pretty interesting for parts of the eastern U.S. as well. Now, before we get started with this video, if you like weather related content, you can always subscribe to my channel. We do this stuff here all the time on this channel here as well. Since we got that out of the way, we're going to get started with the Canadian model that's done the best job on the last winter storm that went through parts of Kentucky, Tennessee, up into the New England states. So we'll use this first. And currently across the country here, we got a lot of lake effect snow going on in the Great Lakes region, especially a pretty intense band of lake effect snow coming off of Lake Ontario as well. So there's a lot of lake effect snow going on up there. Overall, it's mostly quiet across the country for today. And as we continue on over the next couple of days, it really stays mostly quiet until we get into Friday here. There's two different things that we may need to watch for. The Alberta Clipper system that we're talking about, KML has it moving in the early morning hours on Friday in North Dakota, eventually getting into parts of Minnesota. But you also got this big blob here of precipitation here. This is going to be potentially becoming a big system here. However, it is going to stay off the East Coast, so we're not expecting much way of major impacts. But if it does trend further to the northwest, not only it may increase chances for some winter weather along the East Coast, but it's also going to kind of delay the system here as well from entering into the U.S. So it'll be interesting to see what the system here could do here um, for us. But either way, we're not really expected to see much in the way of impacts along the East Coast. Anyway, as we move into the afternoon hours on Friday here, you can see a band of some light to times moderate snowfall from parts of Minnesota through southern Wisconsin, northern Illinois. You got that band kind of expanding into parts of Indiana and Ohio as well. And it really starts to ramp up a little bit as we get to the overnight hours on Friday. As I got a pretty good band of some snow across parts of central Indiana to southern Ohio. That'll be pretty interesting. Maybe even for people around the Daytona and Cincinnati area could see something out there if the Canadian model is correct. But as it deepens here, you do have this little warm nose here going into the low here, and that's going to make things change over to rain. And what that warm nose is going to do, then again, it's going to change things over to rain. However, as that low pressure system does move out of your area, it will change over back over to some snow. So it won't be snow for everybody. At least throughout the entire event, it will not be. If you're on the north side of the low, you could see snow throughout the entire event. But if you're in the center of the low or it's further south, you could see a mix of rain with it as well. So that track really does determine the threat for these areas in here as well. At the same time, we do have some heavy snow across parts of southwestern Virginia. You can see here how that low does continue to move off to the southeast. It does bring in some snow chances into parts of North Carolina as well. So pretty interesting output from the Canadian model with that. Let's check out the European model. This model was not bad on the last system as well. There is going to be a weak system here moving very quickly here across parts of the Midwest down to the Ohio Valley here. This is going to be moving very quickly, but it may have a band of some light snow showers and some showers as well. But we're not expecting anything major out of that system. But here comes the Alberta Clipper system there, coming from Saskatchewan and Alberta. And you can see here, really by Friday afternoon, it's a little bit slower with it, but does show a lot more snow with it across parts of Minnesota, Wisconsin, and even into Iowa as well. And that will continue to move off to the southeast. But it does kind of weaken a little bit. Plus, it has to track a little further south with it as well. It's got a surface low along the Alabama-Mississippi border by Saturday afternoon. But regardless, on the north side here, there is going to be some snow with it. There'll be plenty of cold air. And you can see here, had that band so light to maybe at times moderate snowfall moves into West Virginia, Virginia, and even to the northern half of North Carolina as well. And eventually that moves off to the coast as well. And here's the icon model. This is the latest run here. It's actually pretty similar to the Canadian model here, just a little north of the track here, maybe just a tad bit, but it does show a little bit of a stronger low. Whenever that happens, you do get heavier bands of snow if the low pressure system is going to be stronger. And it seems like it does weaken a little bit as it continues to move off to the southeast. So there is some uncertainty with the system here. If it does trend a little bit stronger, we could have heavier bands of snow. But at the same time, it could go a little further north if it's stronger. But if it's weaker, it may go a little further south with it as well. So then again, a very interesting solution coming from the Canadian, from the icon model. So it definitely has some similarities to the Canadian and maybe a little bit to the European model as well. Probably a big outlier on this one here is going to be the GFS, and still shows that Clipper system moving through, and and GFS does have this progression bias. It's also a little further to the south as well when it becomes very progressive. You can see here by Saturday, you have other malls that's further to the north and slightly slower. Meanwhile, the GFS has it faster and it's also further south. So it has a progression issue. What's interesting about the GFS solution, you have the low pressure system much further to the south, and if that's correct, this shows a winter storm for parts of the Carolinas. Do I think it's going to happen? Unfortunately, I don't think so. I know people in South Carolina and North Carolina really want some snow, but honestly, I think this is an outlier for now, especially given the fact that it does a progression bias. Plus, the performance on the last winter storm was pretty darn poor. It's definitely one of the worst I've seen in a long time. So you have to take this as a grain of salt here. I don't think the GFS may not be very accurate with this system here, but it's certainly a very interesting solution. It really shows a stronger system with it as well. But then again, I think that is an outlier. Let's check out the GFS Ensemble here. This is your mean snowfall accumulation with a 10-to-1 ratio. And you can see here, you can already tell here, especially when you look up into the Midwest, it already has a northern track here. You might be able to pinpoint here, it does look like your low track might go something like this. With the low pressure system track. It does have quite a bit of snow with it across parts of North Dakota, Minnesota, Wisconsin, even into parts of Illinois as well. Has a pretty good agreement for about 5 inches of snow, which is a pretty good agreement for this far out when you think about it. And it does have another bullseye that kind of pops up in the parts in the Middle Atlantic, even down to parts of the Appalachian Mountains as well, where it does have some areas that could pick up some similar amounts, and some of the highest amounts looks to be in the higher elevations in West Virginia, which does have a little over 7 inches of snow. Now, this could change here, but it is a big uptrend compared to its last run, which if you do compare it to its last run, shows a lot less snow out there in the mid-Atlantic. And then going back to 18C, bam, it's a little further south of it, plus has a little bit more snow with it. But there is still room for changes, so keep in mind that we're still a little ways away for the event. So things can change here, but it is a system we need to watch for as well because it can be pretty impactful for a lot of folks out there as well. So something we need to pay attention to. Last thing we'll check out with this system is the weather predictioner's thoughts on it. This is your probability of really seeing at least a quarter of an inch of snow or sleet. And it does have on day 5, which will be Saturday. You can definitely see here it's got pretty good probabilities here. Really right around the Minneapolis area. And it kind of goes down along the Wisconsin and Minnesota borders. That's a 50 to 70% chance. And really in a dark green color has a pretty decent chance as well. That's a 30 to 50% chance of seeing that as well. And even in the light green area, that's a 10 to 30% chance. And as you move into Sunday, you can see here that got some of the highest probabilities in higher elevations in West Virginia, which I do agree. But there's a very, very large area of a 10 to 30% chance. I mean, it goes as far south as the higher elevations in northeast of Georgia, all the way up into parts of New York, Vermont, and New Hampshire as well. So there's certainly a big spread here, but I think this is mixed in a little bit with some lake effect snow up there as well. That might be what be mixed in, but either way, a very large area here to watch for the potential for some snow chances on day 6, which is Sunday, as well. But the weekend is started looking very interesting for a lot of folks as well. So we got that out of the way. Let's check out to the long range. We're going to start off with the GFS Ensemble here. We're going to let us play out. What's going to be very interesting with this pattern here is that you're going to notice here a big ridge will start to develop in the parts of the western U.S. and eventually it really starts to build up in the northeastern Pacific. At the same time, you do start to see these multiple storm systems move through parts of the eastern U.S. What this does indicate that you do have a potential for an active storm track or pattern. So, and at the same time, then again, you got a lot of ridging across parts of the northeastern Pacific. There's also ridging near Greenland as well, but that does start to weaken a little bit as we get into deeper to January here. It does gain some strength. At the same time, this is almost a blocking pattern here. It's close, not quite. You still got a little bit of an opening there in between Greenland and Alaska, but it is still good enough for a cold and snowy look for parts of the Sichuan and eastern U.S. You can already tell here, you do have some troughing down here as well, so you could get a little bit of a subtropical jet moves, maybe something like this here, and at the same time, you could get Alberta Clipper systems to move from Canada and do something like this. And it'll be interesting when it kind of gets down into parts of the southeastern U.S. And you can see here as we kind of play out here, especially when we get into mid to late January time frame, you can see here your ridge here becomes much stronger here around Alaska and western Canada. So that's a pretty good blocking pattern there. But at the same time, now you start to lose blocking over Greenland. So that'd be more of a neutral NAO up there. And this one over here, this will be a negative EPO, which will favor a pretty good pattern here for the eastern U.S. for colder and potentially snowier conditions. Now, it's unclear of what the systems could look like, but this is a signal that there could be a pretty active pattern coming up very soon, especially when we get to mid to late January. At the same time, this could also lead to some very cold temperatures, especially in the Great Lakes region as well, with a pattern like this. Not only is bringing the storm track a little further south, but it's also got a lot of cold air to work with as well. So you could be talking about well below average temperatures at around this time frame as well. And even going all the way towards the end of the run, it can still continues to show that type of pattern as well, which is very interesting. Now, the European ensembles does not go as far out, but it does show that a very similar solution as you get towards the 7 to 10 day period, where you got all these systems here that kind of roll by through the central U.S. and then starts to move into parts of the eastern U.S. as well. Then again, how you kind of play this here, you got systems that can start up here and it can move something like this here. Now that's kind of an average track here, and this is a mean of 51 members here, so, and this is a pretty decent agreement here as well. But either way, still shows an active pattern for the eastern U.S. Now it's unclear of what the exact storm track would be and what the storm systems will look like. Then again. And this is the CFS model here. Next 7 days, a lot of ridging across the central and western U.S., some troughing in the eastern U.S. Days 8 through 14, a lot of ridging going on in the western U.S., and it pretty much goes up along the entire west coastline. Maybe a little strong with that, but it still favors a pretty good cold and snowy setup for the eastern U.S. However, you do have a positive NAO going on over Greenland, so it's not a 100% blocky pattern, but it's still good enough for a good stormier look there for the eastern U.S. Even go for days 15 for 21, still looks pretty good as well. Might be bringing that storm track a little further north as well. But if you go back to days 8 for 14, you can have a storm track that goes as far south as parts of southern Alabama and southern Georgia. I mean, this storm track here, some of these low pressure systems can go pretty darn far to the south. So you got parts of the south here that may have the potential to see some more snow chances as well, which is very interesting as well. Which I know parts of the south here, it's overdue for a big snow event. This could be your setup here to see maybe at least one big snow event. The possibility is there, but I'm not 100% in stone with this just yet since we are still far out here. But there's been a pretty good signal on this over the last several days here, so it's certainly something very interesting to watch there as well. Here's the cloud prediction or thoughts. This is for days 6 through 10. Cold in the east, warmer in the west. Pretty good a pattern there. Precipitation wise, maybe a little bit more of an active storm track across parts, really anywhere from southern New Mexico into the southeast up along the east coast, which is not bad. It's also looking to be a little bit more active across parts of the north as well. Also looking to be a little bit drier across parts of California, Nevada, Utah. Some of these guys do need a little bit break on the action as well when it comes to getting a lot of rain recently. Now this is day 8 for 14. Still pretty similar with it. Warm in the west, colder in the east. But if you do like its precipitation, it's a little bit different here. It does have, you might be talking about an average storm track, maybe coming from parts of the higher plains here, and it kind of bends down, something like this here. And then again, that's kind of an average track here. There's still a lot of uncertainty here. That's why the percentages are not very high. But either way, it still kind of gives you an idea that the potentials there we could be talking about an active pattern here, even just by looking at this here. As well, despite having percentages being a little bit low, you kind of get the idea with it. Last thing I want to check out is the probability map here for days 8 through 14. This is the probability for temperatures, and you can see here, there's going to be a decent chance of having well below average temperatures in place, especially across parts of the north. And the dark blue color there in the upper Midwest, that's where they have a moderate risk for well below average temperatures. So that's where they have the best confidence. But even areas in the light blue has a chance to see well below average temperatures as well, which could lead to some very cold temperatures as well. If you're talking about well below average temperatures in the parts of the Midwest, you know there's going to be some very cold temperatures up there as well. So there's going to be a lot of cold air in place here, which we certainly won't be lacking with. Precipitation wise, they got a slight risk of heavy precipitation up along the East Coast. So this could be where they're indicating your potential active storm track here. And then again, I'm just saying potential. It's not 100% certain, but the potential is there here. So this could lead to some possibility for some snowfall events up along the East Coast. And I'm saying that's a possibility. Keep on that. Now, this is the risk for snowfall, and I think partially from this, especially in the Great Lakes region, might just be from lake effect snow. When we're going to have very cold temperatures, likely there's going to be some lake effect snow action up there. So I think that's why they have a slight risk of heavy snow. And that even moves up into parts of the New England states as well, which is interesting. And even for the wind outlook, they even got a slight risk for high winds as well. So that could be indication there could be some strong systems up there as well, maybe a potential for a nor'easter. So certainly a very interesting setup here that we have to pay attention to it. The possibility is certainly there. We could see a couple with more winter storms across parts of the eastern U.S. in the future. But for right now, it is something to watch for now, and things could change. But anyways, guys, that's all for you guys today. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys like this video, hit that like button. If you really do like my channel, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell notifications, and never miss an upload. If you guys have questions about this, in the comment section down below. I answer you guys questions, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.